Hello my friends and welcome to another indie game devlog focused on my game Surviving Tonight, which is now available on Steam. I'm still developing the game actively. I love this game. I want to make it better. I want to give people a greater experience. And so just a short devlog today for you guys. I want to talk to you about how I implemented a character class system into the game that essentially allows different play styles to be exploited and for people to kind of customize the way they play their game, and hopefully to also increase the replayability of the game for people that are looking for different ways to go about and replay it. There's a little bit of code that's been involved with a few different scripts, but I'm going to hop in the game and show you what these classes are and what they do.
Surviving Tonight.
Okay, so we'll hop into a brand new game here from our primary menu, and now when you do that, you'll be prompted with this new screen, choose your class. You can see that there's 4 classes here to choose from. They are the Brute Force, Explorer, Arms Master, and Crafter class. And there may be future classes coming, changes and such forth. I definitely want to keep on improving on this. You'll notice that each of these classes has 2 green perks listed. These are positive items for the player, and then 1 red one. These are negative perks. So each class kind of comes with, some good and some bad. If you play as the Brute Force class, the character is strong. They have greater starting max health points and stamina points, meaning they can take more damage, they can run around more, they can do more melee combat, go a little bit longer without having to eat or heal up essentially. However, as a drawback, the player also faces greater increased thirst. They'll need to find water and sources of liquid faster, essentially, because their thirst kind of is the drawback for this class. The Explorer class is exactly that. They're out to explore, therefore they're going to find more loot around the world. They'll see more loot dropping in random places, procedurally generated of course, along with more rare loot. And the Explorer class starts out with a higher battery life for the flashlight, so that battery lasts a little bit longer before it needs to be replaced, so you can keep your flashlight on at nighttime with a little bit less worries about being stuck in the dark. However, because this person is making themselves so available and out there exploring, they are easier spotted by the undead. So essentially, the undead enemies, the zombies in the game, have a greater line of sight of range for detecting the player in this mode. The regular human enemies, however, are not affected by that, luckily. The Arms Master class is all about the weapons, specifically the firearms. They have a higher starting critical hit chance. In the game, you essentially can get these headshots based on a percentage chance, and they do 4 times the damage. So if a weapon was going to do 50 damage and you get a headshot critical hit, then it does 200 damage, which in most cases is enough to stop an enemy in their tracks, or if it's a big boss type enemy, it's going to do some big damage to them. That's awesome. Also, the weapons are slightly more durable, so if you haven't played the game or seen it, all of the weapons can break. Every single thing from the butter knives, to the pistols, to every gun in the game will break over time. And with this class, they each get a little bit more durability points, so they can use them a little bit further before you have to recycle them or essentially lose them to scrap. And the Arms Master class does have the drawback that stamina regenerates slower. Now this is a very specific drawback because stamina is not really used when firing a rifle, a shotgun. However, when you're punching, when you're using your knives and melee weapons, stamina is used. And that means that this class is going to prefer using firearms over melee combat, close quarters combat to some extent. This class will need to find more food, more soda pop, candy bars, and energy drinks to keep their stamina coming up, since it's not going to be as easy to keep it restored. Then we have the final class at the moment, the Crafter class. They start with more crafting materials. The player already starts with some crafting materials at the very beginning of the game, so that when they first go to the church and find a recycling bench and a crafting bench, they can already craft a few items right off the bat. And of course, across the world, there are different places where you can find these benches for crafting. But the crafter class has bonus materials that they start out with, so from the very beginning of the game, we'll be able to craft almost every item in the game, including the more advanced stuff like the freeze ray blaster and the chainsaws and all the cool stuff. They'll be able to get access to that very early on in the game, and when they recycle items in the game, and you can recycle any item in the game, whether it's a weapon or a piece of trash, essentially, you can turn all of it into base materials that you use for crafting. This class gets bonus materials when recycling those items, so essentially they're going to be able to do a lot more crafting throughout the game. They're going to have a lot more access to the craftable items in the game. The drawback to this class is that they do have a lower critical hit chance, so this person is good at crafting, however they're not quite so precise with the weapons, and they have a lower chance of doing that critical massive damage to enemies. But they've got the weapons to back it up. So these are the 4 classes that I'm planning to implement in the next update. This will be a pretty big update. It's going to be released this week, version 1.05 of Survive Into Night. And I hope that it really adds some flavor to the game. Like I said, some people find that like managing their thirst is very challenging. So for them, the brute force class does not make a lot of sense because it makes the thirst part of the game even harder. They might prefer something like craft or explore. And some people think that thirst isn't the biggest issue, and they would prefer to have these perks. So for different players, they might find a class that really fits what they want. And if anything, people might just want to try one out, and then say they get through the game, they beat the storyline, or they decide to start a new one just to see some of the sandbox stuff, and they try something out. I think it offers replayability and a little bit more variety to the game, and it keeps it a little bit more fresh, so each playthrough is just a little bit more unique than the previous one. And that's what we really want to do with our games here. So I think it's a cool update. I'm really looking forward to pushing it out there. If you want to support Surviving Tonight and support me, you can check the game out on Steam. It is now available, and let me know what you think. I really appreciate it, and make sure to like the video if you haven't, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and I'll talk to you guys again next week. Until then, adios.